Rush hour motorists were greeted with wet, greasy roads from the rain. Just before 8, this sedan travelling south along Park Avenue slid on a sweeping bend and crashed sideways into a power pole. The impact on the driver's side almost sliced the car in two. Ambulance rescue paramedics freed its driver, Jocelyn Wright, who'd suffered serious head injuries and multiple fractures. Her father was travelling in another car a short distance behind and witnessed the crash. Police have urged motorists to use caution when roads are greasy.
Two people were incinerated beyond recognition when their van turned into the path of an oncoming semi-trailer. The highway was blocked for 4 hours. Hopes of a healthier economy have been shattered by today's disastrous unemployment figures, which have the number of jobless for March at 9.2%, the highest in 7 years. And the US has warned Iraq to keep away from the international aid project for the Kurdish rebels or face dire consequences. US Congress is considering boosting aid to the refugees.
The unmistakable roadhouse near Karua might seem an odd place to find a collection rivalling any in museums and galleries around the world. Odder still to stumble over what the Leylands have called a Dreamtime experience.
I think it's an opportunity to see for the first time really a display that takes you through the Aboriginal art story, right from the primitive style of cave paintings 40,000 years ago right through to the most modern form of art like the dot paintings and that are on the wall behind us.
Its theme is the significance of art to Aboriginal tribal life in Central and Northern Australia. Art accompanied religion in most aspects of life, from burial ceremonies to hunting rituals. It captured spirit forms, identified tribes, their tools and weapons. Magic or Gadaicha men weaved shoes of emu feathers, human hair and blood. If worn carefully, they left no trace on desert sands.
All the artefacts are all original, very, very old, and there's nothing at all that's not authentic.
Mike and Mal collected many of the items, including a truckload of spinifex grass and red dirt for authenticity. One of their more recent and valuable acquisitions is the Albert Namatjira and Arunda tribe collection. Namatjira bridged the cultural gap between black and white Australians, but in doing so, isolated himself between the two worlds. Andrew Lobb for NBN News.
They came to the Morpeth camp from Scone to Lake Macquarie, Year 9 to 12 students keen to hone their musical skills. For some, the camp offered a host of new experiences.
Many of the students who are here have never played in an instrumental ensemble. They come from smaller schools perhaps that don't have a band, and so this is a real enhancing experience for them.
Activities ranged from choral and instrumental workshops to chamber music and jazz improvisation. This afternoon, before an enthusiastic crowd, they showed the results of 5 days' hard work.
It's been a strange old week in rugby league, with the last round of matches and team performances pushed into the background in preference to another round of let's pick on the referees. Tonight the Magpies and the Raiders get back to what they do best, play football, and that's what the Knights and the Roosters will be doing on Sunday. The Knights are undefeated and were in good touch against Souths last week with an 18-8 win over the Rabbits. John Schuster again proved his worth with a 2-try performance, and the Knights backline is now taking onto the paddock a new tag, Respect. Bolstered by a forward pack that is a proven strike weapon, and with a couple of ex-Roosters in Mike McLean and Peter Johnston in the lineup, the Knights look good to continue their unbeaten run. On the other hand, Eastern Suburbs, with Mark Murray and Jack Gibson in control, have shown some excellent early season form with a 2-win, 2-loss record, and last week were too good for the out-of-form Balmain Tigers 18-9. In 1990, the Roosters were belted by the Knights 34-16 at the ISC, but with players returning to form in Vaughton and McGahn and injured players coming back with a vengeance, East won't be any easy beats on Sunday at 3 o'clock.
While it may not look like it, this is the new Workers Club main bar, poker machine area and bistro. History has recorded the tragic collapse of the old club, 9 people dying when an earthquake hit on December 28, 1989. 50 truckloads of concrete were poured today, 600 tonnes of the 12,000 expected for the entire project. Perfect building weather has guaranteed the work is running on time, with the finish expected in May next year. The total cost, $20 million. At Broadmeadow, demolition and clearing work has started for the new Showground Exhibition Centre. A late change of plans has upped the total cost from $9 million to $10 million.
The additional funding basically allows us to put in fully retractable seating, which means that when we want to do a large exhibition, we can take all the seating out and offer exhibition organisers a clear span, empty space, basically.
Premier Greiner has approved the extra funding, saying the 5,000-seat complex will give Newcastle facilities equal to that of any capital city. Building should be finished in November.
Like it's hot and some sweat when the heat is on. Some feel the heat and decide that they can't go on. Some like it's hot, but you can't tell how hot till you try. Some like it's hot, so let's turn up the heat till we fry. Some like it hot, some like it hot. Some like it hot.
The increasing amount of pollution going into the sea and the numbers of fish being taken out are concerns coastal communities can no longer afford to ignore. The voluntary group Marine Education Society of Australasia has launched a campaign aimed at school children. It's trying to instil an awareness of sensitive marine food chains and the importance of their protection.
Basically awareness of what we're putting into the marine environment and how we take out animals from it.
Heavy metals, sewage, agricultural and industrial chemicals washed into estuaries and flushed into the sea are taking their toll on the marine environment. Staff and students of the Bioanalytical Research Group at Newcastle University are trying to find out how local waters are affected. Looking for residual and dangerous pollution levels in sea snails and fish gathered along the coast between Newcastle and Lake Macquarie, as well as from the lake itself, they hope to come up with an early warning system for what could be an environmental time bomb.
We'd be hoping to come up with an early marker for pollutant types, and the long-term effect is really going to be concentrated on the impact in generations to come, so that we can preserve our resources and provide good resources for future generations to come.
Within the next year, the recycling facility will operate here off Kyle Street in the Rutherford Industrial Estate. It will process materials from engine and transmission oils to solvents including alcohols and ketones. It will be the first facility of its kind in the Hunter region.
Normally the oils and solvents are either stockpiled on the industry site itself, or at times they are illegally discharged back into the waterway systems and even back into council landfill systems.
Basically, the plant will vaporise wastes, then distill them, separating various compounds before storage and eventual return to the supplier. Maitland City Council and the project's consultants believe it will prove a huge environmental asset to the region.
One, it is going to keep our environment clean, and two, it has an impact back on energy use in that fossil fuels will not be used as much as if industry were purchasing all the time new products.
Anyone with objections to the project must appeal to the Land and Environment Court within the next week. Chris Barth, NBN News.
Valerie Hayward was supposed to attend her aunt and uncle's 50th wedding anniversary on Saturday night with her mother. She never arrived. Relatives notified police of her disappearance yesterday. She was last seen around 12 o'clock at the My Florist shop at Charlestown Square, where she bought a bunch of yellow roses as a gift for her aunt. Police are concerned for her safety, as it is out of character for Miss Hayward to simply disappear. She was wearing a white T-shirt and blue shorts and driving a 1985 white Honda Civic, Queensland registration 768 PXQ. Anyone who saw her on Saturday is urged to contact Wallsend Police.
Two people travelling in a Volvo sedan were killed instantly when it and a combi van collided 3 kilometres west of Doyleson at about 7:15 this evening. The sole occupant of the van, which had been travelling east at the time of the smash, was trapped in the wreckage for some time. He was eventually freed and taken to Wyong Hospital with serious injuries. It's expected that after assessment there, he'll be flown elsewhere for treatment. Morisset police are conducting inquiries into the accident but had not yet released any details late tonight. Waihi Road was closed at the Doyleson intersection to allow scientific police to carefully examine the scene.
Hundreds of local primary students will be hatching plots of fantasy and adventure and dreaming of dragons, pirates and magicians tonight. That's the stuff Margaret Mahi's books are made of. She's written more than 100 and had them illustrated and published around the world.
They're really fun. They're exciting too.
Titles such as The Great Piratical Rombustification, The Downhill Crocodile Whiz and The Birthday Burglar and The Wicked Headmistress are popular, as is a chance to get an autographed copy from the author, who's every bit as lively as her work.
I suppose that anyone who puts on a wig and dances around in front of a classroom of children can't claim to be an introvert.
Margaret began writing stories when she was 7 and tries to convince youngsters that their own stories are just as important as any they'll find bound in a book.
But the writing that children do must seem to them to be perhaps a very imperfect version of what they see in books. But I try to suggest to them that it's a perfectly legitimate, true form of writing.
This is the reason basketball is the fastest growing sport in Australia. Players like Chris Steele, Neil Turner and Al Green starred for the Falcons against Hobart on Friday night. But today they were at Carrington Public School, sharing their expertise with the kids of years 5 and 6.
We notice a lot of the kids are starting to play a lot more, and we can go into the schools and give them as much help as we can.
The star pupil was 11-year-old Christy Lobley. Later this month, she'll travel to Broken Hill with the Hunter Primary School side for the New South Wales Championships. Today, she revelled in the chance to display her skills to her heroes.
It's pretty good because you get to learn a few new things that you haven't done before, and just better than just getting coached by the one person too.
Yeah, do you get along to see the Falcons much at all? They're your favourite team, are they?
Oh yeah, they're my favourite team, but I don't really get to see them a lot.
It was a well-earned break from serious training for the Falcons stars, but their intensity is sure to return in time for this Saturday's clash with Canberra.
They're a really experienced team with Phil Smythe and Herb McGeechan. They're always going to be a tough outfit to beat, but I think we'll go quite well at home against them.
The blue Suzuki hatch belonged to Billie Jean Kirk. According to police, it broke down, so Billie Jean and Andrew Malone left it at the NRMA depot at Mount White on the 22nd of last month, after being told the car had engine trouble. But it wasn't until yesterday, following publicity in the media, that police discovered this was the car they were looking for. Photos of the couple have been widely circulated, and the last sighting of them was at a King's Cross motel 2 weeks ago. Police have offered a $1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest for the Manson murder. The Englishman's body was found bound and weighted by fishermen off Pulborough Island last month.
The Newcastle launching was performed by the Premier's wife, Catherine Greiner, at City Hall. Local business and community leaders were told of the salvo's work and were asked to set the ball rolling. Many of them did, with contributions towards the Newcastle target of $453,000.
Any town that can do what you've done in the last 18 months can withstand anything else that comes its way. So it's here in Newcastle, the dynamism is here, the commitment is here. Let's make sure we give the salvos a hand on the 26th of May.
People willing to help in the door knock on that date can contact any Salvation Army post. The need to cover the shortfall from other Army sources is even more urgent this year, with the recession putting tremendous pressure on resources.
We don't like to cut back anywhere. We like to keep up with the call which is made upon us without going overboard, of course. And to do that, we do rely upon the public support.
Even the cost of today's lunch for the business launch was fully covered by local firms.
$240 people boarded the old train at Sydney early this morning. An exciting day out for some, for others a giant emotional hurdle.
I am having therapy at the moment, and my therapist suggested that it would be a good thing if I went.
In May last year, the loaded 3801 was returning from a jazz festival in the Hunter Valley when it was rammed by a commuter train near the Hawkesbury. 6 people were killed and steam rail travel was halted pending an inquiry. The controversy behind it, the 3801 was back on the tracks today as one of Steamfest 91's main attractions. Arriving in Maitland a few hours later, passengers said the trip had worked wonders.
You need to get back on the horse after it's bucked you, don't you? Yeah.
Two cars collided head-on over double white lines on a downhill cutting near the Buchanan turn-off at about 8:30. Another car and a utility taking evasive action were caught up in the crash.
I applied my brakes fairly quickly, and a car that was travelling behind the accident towards me had to turn and go around the side of the vehicles that were in the accident, and he subsequently lost control and sideswiped my vehicle.
After sideswiping the utility, the Ford sedan sped over a 3-metre embankment into the bush. Its male driver walked away unharmed. His wife was treated for shock and a broken arm. 2 people in this Audi station wagon escaped with minor cuts, but the driver of this Toyota Corolla was pinned in the wreck, his right arm almost severed by the impact. Volunteer rescuers and paramedics worked for an hour to free him. Suffering severe arm and leg injuries and cuts to his head, he was taken by the rescue helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital. The other injured people were taken by road to Maitland Hospital and later discharged.
It has been obvious for some weeks that the Knights, although without a loss, had been playing below their potential, and at Belmore the wheels dropped off entirely. Still in the match at 10-8, the Knights then proceeded to hand the Bulldogs an easy win.
With the errors I'm talking, you know what I mean, losing the ball on the first tackle became a regularity, you know, losing the ball over the try line, unfortunately, you know, and it's sort of things where, you know, you don't need a sledgehammer to squash a grape, they're just obvious, you know, and the guys are certainly smart enough to be able to respond back.
For coach Alan McMahon, it was his side that lost the game instead of Canterbury winning it.
Well, they might have been unlucky a couple of times too, but, you know, I think that we contributed to our downfall more so than what they dominated us.
With the in-form Illawarra outfit due in town on Saturday for round 7 of the Winfield Cup, Newcastle will have to regroup quickly.
There was a lot of thought there to be done before the side's announced before we play Illawarra. Robbie McCormack came into the lock forward situation and got the players player, and he certainly had a terrific game, Robbie. And I think he was probably a little bit unlucky not to be picked in the countryside. However, he didn't. You know, there's certainly a lot of thinking to be done by the selectors at this stage, because we've got to regroup, as you said, and I'm sure we will, as we've done before.
Not all news was bad from Belmore, as Ashley Gordon and Mark Glanville gained selection in the country origin team to take on City on Anzac Day at the Sydney Football Stadium. Both attended today's medical and came through with flying colours. Gordon will line up at fullback while Glanville moves to the second row.
It was a little bit disappointing on Sunday going down the way we did, but certainly the selection of the countryside has made up for that.